Happy Thursday, April 4th, 3 weeks out to the day from the 2024 NFL Draft, which, of course, we're going to be all over the next few weeks, partner. As usual, thanks for being with us. I'm Bobby Trossett, joined by Sarah Ellison, my co-host and partner. This live stream is brought to you by our newest brand sponsor at Manscaped. More on them in just a bit. Daniel Jeremiah, former Ravens scout, now NFL Network draft analyst, went on with the guys at the lounge over at the Ravens in-house and gave them a lot of great content that we're going to kind of circle through here. We'll also talk about a familiar face, at least for Todd Monken during his time at Georgia, lad McConkey, who is definitely garnering a bunch of different interest at wide receiver coming out of the draft, the potential reuniting for those two, because he spoke about it himself with Kay Adams. But we begin this live stream, partner, with Zay Flowers and the projection or the confidence levels throughout the fan base about him being wide receiver one in year two.
Well, it's just coming off of, as we know, we spoke about it at length yesterday, right before we came on. The news had hit that the Bills traded Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans. And so, not surprisingly, the wide receiver starved fan base in Baltimore is jealous and angry that the Ravens didn't get him instead of the Texans. Understand it. And so what was interesting, though, is Zay Flowers started to catch some strays, I felt like. So you can kind of see here, Ramey, who is a big fan account that kind of covers the Ravens, and he kind of quote retweeted another fan, and I don't think he's the only one who kind of said it. He's like, we got Zay Flowers as our wide receiver one with a frowny emoji, frowny face emoji. So we don't need to downplay. I guess my thought is we don't need to downplay Zay and his fantastic rookie year to argue that the Ravens and Eric DeCosta should have gotten Stephon Diggs or somebody else. And so Ramey, quote, retweets, which I agree with. He says, let's be so serious for a second. Why can't Zay Flowers be wide receiver one based off of what he did his rookie year? And then he went on to say, and why are we acting ashamed to say wide receiver one is Zay? He was a first round draft pick, which many were celebrating, by the way, that put wide receiver one ability on tape year one. Now, I pulled this picture to put with that because here he is. Is he standing over Snead? He obviously hurt the team with the taunting on this, but this is the AFC Championship game. Completely unafraid of L'Jarius Sneed. Now, again, Sneed did knock the ball out. We don't need to. But I'm talking about. Remember how we talked about Eric DeCosta saying probably one of the biggest factors that will let him know, besides talent, what you see on tape, like that somebody's going to make it. It's their mental makeup. Like in that game, the way Zay came and he has to clean up the rookie mistakes. But that's what I attribute it to. Just rookie mistakes, not to leap forward with the ball or not to taunt afterwards, but his physical makeup and his cutting and route running, the way he does that, his chemistry with Lamar, coming up with, over 800 yards. And I think he's going to take a leap in the second year. I agree with Ramey. You can argue for, I think maybe a lot of people are what's the word? Not confusing. Confusing is not the right word, but mashing together wide receiver one with X wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Because X he's not the X, but he still is wide receiver one. Argue for an X receiver or argue that EDC should just stack the board alongside Zay. But let's not have Zay catch these strays because he is worthy of wide receiver one with what he's put on tape.
So we put on tape statistically last year, to your point, 858 receiving yards, 77 receptions. He was targeted 108 times, caught 5 touchdowns. Those are numbers that, sure, might be underwhelming compared to the traditional X's out there, compared to Stephon Diggs, what he's posted the last 4 years, for example, just based on the news cycle this week in Buffalo. The reason why I'm not ashamed is because of what they have around him. And I think that they were a play away.
Zay.
What's that?
I also hope because of Zay himself.
Well, sure. and what he's done. Absolutely. But what I mean by that specifically is they were a play or two away now, which is what we've talked about ad nauseum, from a trip to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning a play or two that was self-inflicted away from having a trip to Super Bowl 58. Meaning they didn't necessarily need that big body that we're all talking about. That doesn't mean you can still want that. You can still think that they're going to be overwhelmingly dominant with that type of player on their roster, but they didn't need it. Do you agree?
I mean, I still think they blew an opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I still think they could have won the Super Bowl. So
Right. Without that guy.
Yeah. Without that guy. Now
and
that
so
being
Zay
said,
could be that guy
yeah,
in year 2 because of what they have around them, the way that they're built. And yes, because of what he presents as well, from an ability standpoint, the way he stretches the field, the chemistry off schedule that he has with Lamar, all of those things. That's why I'm not ashamed, because it was self-inflicted last year. They didn't need that wide receiver, that overwhelming wide. We think Zay could be that guy. He could potentially be that overwhelming guy, but he's not, prototypical in that department.
He's not. Again, I think we're like putting together wide receiver 1 with X. Like, how are you defining wide receiver 1? If it's production, I mean, he can do it. Like, and I'm not worried about it at all.
Production for sure.
There's
no
production
doubt there.
for sure, and he's in the wide receiver room. So when you talk about targets and yards and touchdowns, he not only we've debated with Bateman. Like, the Ravens are giving Bateman wide receiver 2, right? They're saying, okay, we're giving it to you. That's why we're not going out and signing or trading for like a Stephon Diggs or something big like that. But we're kind of like, but did Bateman earn that? They're giving Zay Flowers wide receiver 1, and he earned it. You know what I mean? Like, he earned it. So you could argue, okay, maybe they didn't need that X wide receiver, to your point, because of how good Zay was and his chemistry with Lamar. Plus, you could bring in the tight ends, and you could say that they're a run-first team. So in that sense, maybe that's why they don't need it. But also, to your point, because, and I know you feel this way because we've said it, we would also like to have that X, right? Because that is the missing link. But I think that Zay for sure has earned wide receiver 1 targets next year. And I think Bateman needs more competition, and we're going to get to the draft here in just a minute. But yeah, I just feel like if you want to criticize the organization for not getting Stephon Diggs or getting another X, that's fine. But I don't think we need to downplay Zay.
And just to kind of like restate what we mentioned yesterday, one area that's definitely a critique, that's open to critique, should be the lack of spending and investing, which we're going to discuss during Lamar's rookie window on that position.
Yes.
Right. They took their swings in the draft, and they took very, very, very minor swings on veterans in free agency, but they didn't go out and make, and which was magnified, right, by their lack of success in the draft.
Correct. So one other thing from yesterday, and I was trying to get the answers, but we were just moving too quick, and I couldn't get it to come up because I guess I got to pay for it. But while we were talking yesterday about Stephon Diggs, and I said that I personally, if the Ravens could have afforded it, I still would have taken the chance, despite him having a fallout with Buffalo, if the price was right. And I mentioned that the Ravens, there's just no way that they could afford it this year, even if they restructured Lamar and they restructured like Andrews and Humphrey and all that. They're still going to have to restructure some of those anyway, just to get the draft class in and probably a few more veterans. So they have to, those restructures are still coming. So I don't even know where you would restructure more to fit in Stephon Diggs. And then I had made the comment that some fans, a segment will say that the Ravens are cheap. And I said, well, to be accurate, the Ravens are not cheap. The Ravens are cheap at certain positions. Yes. And wide receiver being one. And so I saw somebody repeatedly ask, like, Sarah, can you back up that statement? And so I was trying to get on Spot Track during the episode, but in order to go backwards to look at salary cap, you have to pay for a subscription. So you know what?
What a business model.
I dug into my pockets and I paid for the subscription just so I could, because I felt like that was a fair question. Like, back up kind of your statement there. So because I had mentioned, now this critique I feel like is more on point. This came from Kevin Ostreicher yesterday. He said Lamar Jackson seeing all these teams get their young quarterback, star wide receivers. Now here's the key quote: while they're on their rookie deal. So to me, it was like Stephon wasn't a possibility. I just don't know where the money would come from, as I explained with the extensions. So on their rookie year, and I said, and then so it was like, yeah, why didn't the Ravens do that? So the Ravens spent money. They just didn't spend money at wide receiver. And that's what I was asked to kind of show information on. I won't go.
By BP in the live chats.
Oh, here he is.
You know
BP.
that he appreciates you going to get that subscription. Well done. Well done getting that subscription. Deep
yeah,
in the
BP, I
pocket.
wasn't, because I think I like it when we get pushback. I don't know that I care for personal attacks, but BP didn't do that. So I'm here to answer those questions for sure. You know,
I like it. I like it because this is going to be educational. I'm glad you're diving into this. Should we go big screen here?
Yeah, so let's go big screen. And I went back to 2019. I didn't pull 2018 because Joe Flacco was still on the roster, and he, I think, was number 1 at the time. So quarterback was like one of the top. Anyway, he wasn't the starter yet. It was still kind of Joe Flacco. So I started with 2019. Okay. So the Ravens, as you can see to the right, it kind of tells you how much money they had left over by the end of the year. Okay. So in 2019, they had less. They were, I don't know how this works. Negative 2.3 million was the projection from SpotTrack, and their numbers aren't perfect. I'm sure the Ravens somehow got above the negative, because I don't think they can be under. But point being, they always spend to the cap. So I want to help people in their criticism of the Ravens. Yeah. You want to be accurate with it. If they're always spending to the cap, it's hard to say that they're cheap. Mm-hmm. Like always. So 2019, they spent beyond the cap. Where did the money go? Well, overwhelmingly to the defense. Okay. Almost 50%, which ranked number 3 that year, went to the defense. If you want to know specific names. Oh, by the way, look all the way down here. Secondary, number 1 in the league at 33% of the cap.
Yeah.
The secondary.
This was Eric's first year, right?
This is yes.
And that includes Earl Thomas on that.
Right. So there were 4 in the top 8 paid that year were in the secondary: Jimmy Smith, Marcus Peters, Brandon Carr, and Earl Thomas.
Wow.
Okay. Now the other ones was Brandon Williams. He was number 2, and then Ronnie Stanley and Marshall Yonda. Those were that's where the money was going that year. It was obviously not to wide receiver. Okay. So let me go to 2020. Okay. 2020, once again, massive money to the defense. Now that year they had a little bit left over at the end of the year. They had 6.9 million. My guess is because Eric always goes into the season wanting around 6 or 7 million. He keeps it there for injuries in case you need to sign people or trades. I don't think he got a trade that year. I'd have to go back and look. But so where did all that money on the defense go? Well, once again, look at the secondary. They were number 4 that year. But also number 1 on the list that year, Matthew Judon, then Marcus Peters, Brandon Williams, Calais Campbell, Marlon Humphrey. Okay. So then you go to 2021 here. Okay. Are we moving? Doesn't look like this is moving.
There we
go. 2020. Okay. So 2021. 2021, again, defense. Almost 50% again. And then that year, again, secondary quite a bit. Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Tavon Young, Nick Boyle. Oof, that was a rough year. He was being paid a lot. Sammy Watkins, Alejandro Villanueva, and then Kevin Zeitler.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to start seeing a little bit of a switch from defense to offense in these next 2 years. Okay, 2022. Offense is starting to come up. A little bit. Yep. Now offense is being paid more, 43%. And again, at the end of the year, they only had $382,000 left at the end of the year, so they spent to the cap. They're not cheap. They're cheap in certain positions. Okay, so offense finally leaps over defense. And my theory, Bobby, by the way, as I'm looking through these numbers, what came to my mind was the criticism is like, oh, the Ravens pay defense, but they don't pay offense. But then I start seeing that the offense is starting to move up, and it's starting in 2022, and it continues. It went into 2023, and it continues into 2024. My feeling is because the Ravens, and they are unabashed about this, because they're a draft team, And Eric DeCosta said this very clear. I'm not interested in paying other people's players. He does it here and there like he did with Derrick Henry. But I want to pay our guys. When the Ravens start hitting on offense, about 4 years later, you start to see them paying more of their cap to offense. If they're hitting on defense, you'll start to see more of the cap on defense. Now, that's not always true. We'll find some exceptions. But once we hit 2022, we're starting to see that 2018 class get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And 2019. Okay. So offense takes the lead in 2021. Quarterback moves up to number 7 while he's still on his rookie deal. I mean, Lamar's starting to count a little bit more as a first-round quarterback. Okay. And then the secondary never goes away, though. So in 2022, Lamar was number 1, then Marcus Peters, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey, Mark Andrews. That was the draft pick with Lamar, Kevin Zeitler, and then Tyus Bowser. Bowser had a good year that year. I wish that had continued into 2023, but it didn't.
And Sarah, this finally, was Lamar's on the 5th-year option on this chart, right?
No. That's in 2023. That was last year.
That's 23.
No. You're right. 2022. Yeah. You're right.
Yep.
My bad.
Yep. For 23 and change.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then so 2023 was his first year on his new contract.
Mm-hmm.
So then offense continues to be paid the most, 43%, to the defense 36%, and you got some special teams in there. Yep. Excuse me, I'm looking on the wrong chart here. Let me see here. 2023. Sorry. Offense is at 50% now. And then defense is at 33%. So they've flipped. It used to be how many years in those early years when to the point when Lamar wasn't being paid, they were paying the defense. So now at the offense at 50%, obviously not a big surprise. It was actually Ronnie Stanley number 1, then Lamar last year, then Roquan, Marcus Williams, Patrick McCary, Justin Tucker, Morgan Moses, and then Zeitler.
Right.
So the point is, just to BP's question, the Ravens spent money. They always spend money. Cheap is not the right word for the Ravens. Cheap is the Bengals. Cheap are all these teams that do not pay even close to the cap. There are teams that are 20, 30 million under the cap. The Bengals have done that often. Okay. Cheap is not a team that pays to the cap every year. They haven't paid wide receiver. That's the criticism. And my theory is they haven't done it in part because they stink at drafting at it.
I was going to say they
and
haven't
that
hit.
might change with Zay. But when I keep seeing the trends that when you hit in the draft, then 4 years later, now all of a sudden you're paying more at that position, it's because they hit in the draft. If they hit at wide receiver, I think they will finally pay at wide receiver. That's my prediction.
And he would be the first in the Lamar era, would Zay, right? To be paid after the rookie deal.
Yeah. And I mean, how many others, though? I don't even remember many others that you drafted and paid, because Torrey Smith they let go.
Oh, outside of the Lamar era?
Yeah.
And then the Anquans and Steves came from other clubs.
I don't know that it's ever happened.
Ooh,
a big deal. Not like a huge one. Like I could see like a I don't know, Devin Duvernay they let go. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody that was like a 4th wide receiver and that maybe they repaid or something. I don't know. But like a big time wide receiver contract, it hasn't happened.
Can Zay embark on this new trend in Baltimore? Can he please do that?
Can he do it?
For everybody, that's good stuff, though. Good breakdown. Again, when you throw out these words, these phrases that you'll see on the internet or whatever within the fan base, whether they're cheap or conservative or all this, like you have to be more specific. And what you just got down to the bottom of is that they're cheap at the wide receiver position, and it's been magnified because of their inability to consistently hit in the draft. That's the big takeaway there.
There you go.
So before we get to Daniel Jeremiah's recent interview with the guys on the lounge, courtesy of Baltimore Ravens, let's get to our brand sponsor, our newest brand sponsor, our friends at Manscaped. And if you're looking to upgrade your below the belt grooming game, look no further. Take a look at this. It is, and it's my personal go-to, by the way. It's my personal go-to grooming tool, that is, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The folks at Manscaped have taken grooming precision to a whole new level. Look at what this trimmer provides you. You got next-gen dual skin-safe blade heads, upgraded trimmer blades, interchangeable foil blades for enhanced performance. It's also waterproof. And I just wanted to show you the actual still shot as well of what we're dealing with here. I'm going to show you what they sent me as well. And I know what Gardner got his laying around somewhere over there in Columbus.
You know it. Yeah, of course.
I love it. Your oldest is in the
My
teens,
oldest son.
so
He's entering this era.
He's in the heat of the teens right now. I think he's got the same thing that I do, which is this lawnmower 5.0 Ultra.
Yeah.
I brought it out of the package for you guys. I've been using it consistently, but look, this thing's waterproof. So
yeah,
this kind of maintenance can be done smoothly in the shower. And that's the headliner of what they refer to as the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, but that's not all that it comes with. It gives you Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver ball toner, along with the Weed Whacker designed for nose and ear hair trimming. So it is so thorough. And the best part for you out there as the Vault subscriber, you get 20% off and free shipping if you use the code THEVAULT at checkout at manscaped.com. The link is in the show notes below. Again, 20% off plus free shipping on top of that if you use code THEVAULT at manscaped.com. Manscaped, from when you want to be caught with your pants around your ankles. Good stuff there. And again, this full package is available on manscaped.com. I've been using this sucker consistently, and apparently Guardy and I have something in common.
Well, and
now
here's what's funny, because obviously this is made for men, but you like your significant other to be nice and hygienic, clean and hygienic and all that kind of stuff. What I like is all those heads are removable and washable.
Oh yeah.
So even though Gardner took it, like I like open it up, I wash them all off, and I'm like, all right, give it to the husband, and let's trim up. So I know I love it.
Here they are. Yeah. They're all right here. This is the package that it comes in.
Everything Manscaped here.
Right? That's what we do. Manscaped, newest brand sponsor here inside the Vault. Very appreciative of their support here in the offseason as we get ready for the draft, which is Daniel Jeremiah's. That's his thing.
It's his bread and butter.
Former Raven scout. You overlapped with him for years in the building. Somebody who worked his way through the NFL and then said, you know what? I want to get into broadcasting, and goodness gracious, what a second act, if you will. He's done really, really well for himself, and he is the lead NFL Network draft analyst. And Ryan Mink and Garrett Downing had him on the show, which is sort of an annual thing for those guys. What'd you come up with? I know you kind of circulated through the show and grabbed some of your own takeaways.
Yeah, so I think, we could revisit some of it there. Or just go listen to it over there at the lounge. Excellent interview. And I got to say, Bobby, I love them both, but I think that Daniel Jeremiah is my favorite draft analyst over Mel Kiper, who I love, is a Baltimore guy, but there's something about Daniel Jeremiah and the way he breaks it down, but also having been a former Raven. I like him. I like him a lot as a draft analyst. So, okay. So I pulled some sound bites on two different topics. I did offensive line, really just tackle, and then wide receiver, because I know what this fan base is all about, even though I think wide receiver is probably the fourth biggest need in terms of position.
Behind edge, offensive line, and cornerback.
Yeah.
Is that where you're at?
Yeah. And corner and wide receivers close, I should say. But I'd put offensive line and edge above for sure. Anyway, so the guys at the lounge asked him about several offensive tackle prospects, but at the end of the first round, they specifically asked about Amarius Mims out of Georgia. Hello, Todd Monken. And then Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. If you go to Daniel Jeremiah's big board, he has them ranked literally right next to each other. Mims number 22, Guyton number 23. And this isn't just like a ranking of offensive tackles. Like, these are rankings of all positions, and he's got the two right next to each other. So here's what he had to say about these two guys potentially being there at number 30.
Well, they're like a WWE tag team in the future if they'd like to be, because they're enormous human beings. And, there's certain, teams have certain core beliefs and they have a way that they want their team to look and play. And when I look at those two guys, they're massive human beings. They're both a tick under 6'8". I think, I think Mims is 340 something. Guyton's in the 320s. Like, they're huge. They're both talented pass protectors. These guys hadn't played a ton. So when you look at the starts, Mims is 8, Guyton's in the early teens, I want to say. If these guys had gone back and had another year of school, gone back one more year through this process, these are top 10 picks. These are physical freaks who can pass protect. Those guys are hard to find. So there's areas they can refine in their games, no doubt. But I just go back and in the Wayback Machine to all the way back to my time in Baltimore, and I just remember Jonathan Ogden and Orlando Brown, and all the way back there in that time, and it's followed all these many years later. They love size and they love athleticism out there on the edge. And these guys, to me, it's value because we have a deep tackle draft, which kind of maybe slots them down a little bit. And they don't have the number of starts that some teams are comfortable with. But if you look at this as your first round pick in 2025, you could make a case you're getting, top 10 players.
Okay, Bobby, I like that. I like to hear that because where did the Ravens have to draft Ronnie Stanley? Was he number 6?
Ronnie was definitely top 10 if I'm remembering correctly.
Wiki. Okay.
Yeah.
To his point, I mean, he's saying these guys are just massive athletic freaks. Okay.
At 300 plus pounds a piece.
Oh, and it's 6'8", just under 6'8".
Right.
So, yeah. So I'm seeing in the comments that Ronnie Stanley was number 6. Okay. Trying to verify here.
2017.
Yeah, he was. 2016, round 1, pick 6. Okay. To get somebody that's even a left tackle or a tackle that has that kind of size and athleticism and all that, that's where you typically have to be as top 10 to get a left tackle of the future. When I hear him saying that both Guyton and Mims are, if they are qualified, and if they and the guys ask, like, why, if they're so good, why could those guys be there at number 30? Why is there even a chance? I was surprised he didn't bring up injury history for Guyton. I mean, not for Guyton, for Mims. Instead, he said for both of them, it's lack of experience. And that's where he says right there, if they had gone another year, they would have been top 10. Bobby, to me, if either one of those guys are at number 30, I am running the card up to the commissioner and putting that in and getting one of these two guys. To get at number 30, he also went on, by the way, Garrett asked, he goes, in your write-up, you had said that both of them could play right tackle, kind of their rookie year, and that's what they've done. He was like, but do you think they could be left tackle? Without hesitation, Daniel Jeremiah says, no question, they would have no trouble. In fact, I project both of them to wind up there.
Okay.
So can you ask for a better scenario where you're keeping Ronnie Stanley for one more year?
Yep.
And you give a guy like this, right tackle, who doesn't have a ton of experience, put him in at right tackle. And then you've got your left tackle of the future at number 30. Now, of course, you got to make sure they stay healthy and they've got to develop and all that kind of stuff. But I'm running to the board for that.
One thing too is I think I'm more comfortable with, there's two positional classes that are being described as incredibly deep, right? It's the offensive line class, particularly tackles, and it's the wide receiver class.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot better. Let's put the Ravens' past history at the position drafting wise aside for a second, and let's bet on this.
It's tough to do, but I got you.
It's very hard to do, but let's bet on the depth for a second.
Yeah.
Let's bet on Daniel Jeremiah's acumen, right, and his expertise, and let's bet on how deep that class is for a second. I'd be much more comfortable waiting till day 2 or even day 3 to get your wide receiver than I would be waiting for the tackle class to come.
You're going to love the other soundbite I brought out.
Right?
Yeah, you're going to love it. But before I get to that for wide receiver, because you're talking about the depth at wide receiver, right? We've also been...
comparison to the tackle depth, right? I get that it's there, but when you hear him refer to those guys the way that he is,
right,
and you think about that, there is a drop-off. It might be deep, but there is a drop-off in that class.
Okay, so that's the next soundbite. So Garrett had followed up, or Ryan, one of the two. It was Ryan. He said, well, what if we trade back? Okay. And then that puts you in the early second round, and you still got your late second round that you already have at number 60. What if the Ravens trade back and say and I was very interested in this. Kingsley Sumataia, I think I just butchered that. We'll call him Kingsley.
Okay.
And I should know better because he's from BYU. And Bobby, he dominated. Okay. Kingsley dominated at BYU. Just another massive human being. So I was interested to hear what Daniel Jeremiah might say about him as a potential tackle for. See, look at that. I'm seeing Kingsley pro ready from BYU. Okay. Here's the thing, though. I was right there with Ryan, right? What if you trade back, you get some extra picks, you can go ahead and take Kingsley or somebody else in the second round. Okay. Listen to what he says about this.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, I like Blake Fisher from Notre Dame. He's interesting. He's young. He played on that right side. I think he's someone that his best football is still ahead of him, but I like the tools that he has. He'd be an interesting one for me. I like Christian Jones from Texas. Would be another one in that mix. And I say all that, and to me, I still think there's a pretty significant drop off. Once you get through that top group, we've talked about the depth of this class, but it's 7, 8 deep. And then to me, once you get to Kingsley, once you get to that other list of names, it's a pretty significant drop off. So to me, it wouldn't be, hey, I'm going to trade down to 35 and take one of those guys. To me, that's one of those moves where you move down to 50 or around there or below before I'd feel great about jumping into that next pool.
Gotcha.
Aha. Okay.
The next pool he's saying is closer to 50. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, I had put out a tweet earlier today. It was following me listening to this, and I put out. I'm going to look up what the results are right now. But I put out a tweet that said, let's say Mims, Chop Robinson, who, by the way, he has Chop Robinson ranked right around where Mims and Guyton is. Okay.
Who the Ravens have hosted out of Penn
State. Who the Ravens have hosted, according to Eric DaCosta. Yep. And then so I have, if Mims is there, Chop Robinson is there, Cooper DeJean, and that's, by the way, who in his last mock draft Daniel Jeremiah projected to the Ravens. And he said,
Where?
of course, another just uber talented guy falls to the Ravens.
Where, though?
To number 30.
Oh, in the opening, Cooper to the Ravens at 30.
Yeah, he had projected that in his last mock draft. This was we covered it I think a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I put in Adonai Mitchell because he thinks that Mitchell could potentially be there. So I tweeted, if those 4 are sitting there, who do you take? I'm glad I say I'm glad because this is what I want. Most people picked Amari. There's almost 2,500 votes. 43% said Mims. And of course, the fan base starved for an ex-wide receiver picked Adonai Mitchell at 27%. And then it was Cooper DeJean at 15 and then Chop Robinson at 13.6. So I bring this up because a lot of people are like, well, if all 4 are there, which is not going to happen, by the way. I just want to know what people preferred.
Yeah.
If all 4 are there, then trade back, right? And maybe pick up Kingsley or whatever. Here's my thing. If let's say in the crazy scenario, all 4 still sitting there, I'm running up and getting Mims. But if the other 3 are there, then I would entertain going back. If Mims is gone, then I would feel okay with getting Kingsley, or whoever, or one of the other guys he named from Notre Dame, or all the guys he named. But if Mims is there, I am not trading back. I'm putting in that pick. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. He said after the first 7 or 8 guys, there's a big drop off, and I'm not dipping back into offensive tackle until 50 or later.
Hey, while we're on the topic of offensive line, off script here for a second, just because 15 minutes ago, there's a source out there from Parker Gabriel, Broncos reporter, that Denver is signing Sam Mustipher, who was the backup center in Baltimore to Tyler Linderbaum last year. So he's heading to Denver, going to be an option for them in the middle. And yeah, he just spent the lone year in Baltimore was a season ago, and then prior to that, he was in Chicago.
By the way, before we completely move on, and this kind of goes to the Sam Mustipher news, at the very end, and it's connected to offensive line still at the very end. Do you remember last year when Daniel Jeremiah was like, if the Ravens don't make at least one trade this draft, he goes, I'll eat a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Remember that? And then the Ravens hadn't made any trades until finally at the very end, DaCosta trades back into the 7th round to get Andrew Voorhees. And like that saved Daniel Jeremiah. So they asked him, they're like, okay, what's your like paper eating bold statement right now, 3 weeks before the draft? He's like, okay, well, I'm not promising I'm going to eat paper. He's like, I'll come up with something new. But he said, stamp this. The Ravens are not taking 1, not 2, but 3 offensive linemen in this draft. That's 33% of their 9 picks.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's matching up nicely because Mustafa's gone. Their 2 guards are elsewhere.
Yeah.
And there's not and their tackle was traded. So I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah. Well, 3
Really
is a lot though. I would have been safe if you said 2. I think 3. We'll see. You got to see how the board falls. Okay. Anyway. So that was his takes on tackle. Okay. So of course I pulled out some wide receiver stuff. Now, how do I want to do this? Okay, I'll start with this. Basically, the question was, they first talked about first round wide receiver. I'll come back to that in a second. They said, okay, if these guys that you pointed out at the end of the first isn't there, they were like, do you feel like there's like a day 2, like what's like a second round? Or do you feel like there's going to be more guys? And if there wasn't a more confident statement than this, listen to this, what he says about wide receiver.
All above receiver. If you wait, do you have good options at the receiver position?
So I was doing Total Access yesterday with Mike Yam, and he was hosting, and he asked about if a team were to take a tackle early, would there be, what kind of receivers would there be there, second, third round? And I said, Mike, look under your chair. And he's such a nice guy. He actually looked under his chair. And I said, there's 3 wide receivers under there, Mike. They're everywhere. I don't like the phrase dime a dozen, but they're everywhere. And it's been that way for the last few years. I don't see that ever changing. You're going to find, we're going to have maybe not to the level of what Puka Nacua did last year, but every year we are going to have receivers taken, with Amon-Ra St. Brown being another example. We're going to have guys taken in the 4th through 7th rounds. There's going to be a handful of those guys every single year that ended up putting up numbers right away in the NFL. The college game is flush with them. High school 7-on-7 has helped through this process. Every college in the country's playing with 4 receivers. USC, even though their receivers weren't as good last year, and watching some of their tape with Caleb Williams, it's like a line change. Just like they're playing with like 10 different receivers. So you're going to see wideouts each and every year, and that's why I know some people get freaked out with those teams picking up at the top. Well, you can't pass on these receivers. These top guys are so good. I'm like, there's a million of them. You can go get another one in round 2 through 7. You're going to find interesting names. So
that was your point, Bobby, right?
Well, now that just kind of reaffirms, like, even day 3 you can wait to, but you got to hit. You got to hit.
That's the thing. Is the
hit.
Confidence level in Baltimore getting the next Puka?
6th rounder. Puka Nacua went on to just break all kinds of rookie records for the Rams and the entire NFL last season, and they grabbed him in the 6th. I mean, Daniel says it's not going away anytime soon.
Right, and I get his point. Like, he's just like talking about how it's a groundswell, right, up from 7-on-7 stuff in high school and college and what's going on there. And so that would be great. We would love to have a saturation of good wide receivers, because the more good ones, the less likely the Ravens can miss in the future on it.
Yeah. Puka's the 5th, by the way. Excuse me.
5th. And by the way, I didn't pull this quote, but they said, okay, well, who in the 2nd round? And some people I've mentioned, because of Daniel Jeremiah, I keep bringing up Xavier Legette in the 2nd round. He brought him up again in this podcast with the Lounge. Yeah. And so, like, he also mentioned Ricky Pearsall and Malachi Conley. And like, my absolute dream, which is not going to happen, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Amarius Mims, number 30, and Xavier Legette at 60. Yes, please. Yes, please. Absolutely. Can I do that? 62, wherever it is.
Somewhere
yes, please.
In the 60s.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky.
Corley.
Yeah.
My bad.
5'11", 210.
Okay, so what about first round now? Okay. So somebody else has Kool-Aid at 30, Sarah.
I've seen that a little bit. He's not
Yeah.
the only one writing that.
Yeah.
It's
We're
Tank,
gonna have to do some profiles on all these guys. We haven't gotten to Kool-Aid
Tank
yet. But
Romansky. And by the way, perfect small brief little segue here before you dive into the last clip.
yeah,
We're gonna have Emery Hunt on tomorrow from Football Game Plan, CBS sports analyst, somebody who knows these prospects as well as anybody across the league, across the football landscape. So we're looking forward to that. He's going to join us for the first half of tomorrow's live stream at 12 noon Eastern. Emery Hunt. Give him a follow. He's really good.
love it. Can't wait for tomorrow. Okay, so the last thing is, okay, what if the Ravens just so happen to do what they've been doing and keep plucking wide receivers in the first round? And he made a joke. He's like, yeah, who would have thought that like the Ravens are like now this wide receiver factory, taking all these wide receivers in the first round. Although factory usually means that like they're always hitting. But anyway, no, somebody's saying, yeah, Corley in the first round. No, he was saying for the second round. I just want to make that clear. All right. So anyway,
if the Ravens draft a first round wide receiver, I'm going to be stunned. Stunned.
I would be slightly, I listen,
Stunned.
I would put it, I would not be stunned. Like really stunned?
Why?
Listen, I'm with you. Like obviously tackle or edge or corner are all other things. And you've dipped in the first round wide receiver, but stunned, I am no longer stunned. I will no longer be stunned. I will be slightly surprised.
Continue.
Okay. See, BP says stun is a reach. BP and I are now friends. We're now
BP's
friends.
active. All right. He's active in the chat.
All right. So they ask for a first round wide receiver. He mentions briefly a couple guys, but then goes off on yet another Georgia Bulldog.
Well, I think, if teams looking at A.D. Mitchell from Texas is, super uber talented. Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, that would give him two big flyers. I don't anticipate Brian Thomas being around there. Mitchell potentially could be there. I'm a huge Lad McConkey fan. I think Baltimore would embrace him in a big way. And he's someone who, when you say a guy's an unbelievable route runner, I think some people have it in the back of their minds. Well, okay, you sacrifice some explosiveness. He's crafty and all the little words that you'll use. This dude's explosive. Like he's got 4.3 speed, can run, get on top of you. He's got big time juice and burst after the catch. But all that in the same package of a guy who can really separate and run routes. And if you start describing him in that way, it sounds eerily similar to a wide receiver that they recently drafted that's been pretty good early on here. So,
wow, he likes him.
He likes him.
He likes him a lot. And luckily for Ladd, he really likes Baltimore's offensive coordinator. If this ends up happening, it's a remarriage. It's a reuniting between Todd Monken and Ladd McConkey, who won championships together at the University of Georgia. Here he is recently on both the thought of joining the Ravens, Lamar, and also reuniting with his former OC.
He's a great guy. So
yeah,
he gave me a chance and got the most out of me. And, we won some games. So
we're hearing he's gonna. The word on the street that Harbaugh's saying he's gonna let Lamar throw the ball around a little more freedom is what he's gonna say. What he's been saying. What do you make of Todd Monken? Like as far as what you've seen, I'm sure in the NFL, winning 2 national championships with him. What can you say about your old coach?
Yeah, he'll get the best out of you. His thing is everything matters, and that's from walkthroughs to school to meetings to practice. That's his thing. Like everything matters. It doesn't matter what it is. So I know he probably kept that motto going into the NFL, and he produced this year, and I know they're probably only going to get better.
How would you feel about reuniting with him?
Yeah, it would be cool.
Do you look good in purple?
We'll see. I don't have much purple, but I'll have to get some.
I could see that. Catching the ball from Lamar Jackson would be pretty fun. You got Derrick Henry there.
Heck yeah.
Coach Todd. I don't know. Just a cute little storyline that I'm tracking here.
Courtesy of your girl, Kay Adams.
I love Kay. It's been a minute. But
oh, you'll be a regular once the season begins. We
oh,
all
okay.
know that.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that.
Well, she better make you a regular. Come on, you guys got tight last year.
But okay, so listen, we know that it's the X receiver that like the Ravens don't have. But I would also be intrigued by 2 Zays running around. 2 Zays? With
Tuesdays.
Lamar? 2 Zays,
Oh,
couple tight
man.
ends,
Yeah, it's
Derrick
intriguing.
Henry.
It's
I
intriguing.
mean, and obviously Monken knows how to use them. He knows Monken. I mean, 2 Zays? Come on.
Tuesdays is intriguing. You know where I want. You know what I want, though.
I know what you want.
You know what I want.
We know.
But
what
hey,
you
that's
want.
all due respect to the lad. It seems like
Yeah.
he's high character guy, explosives, somebody that's just going to fit, right? You're not going to have to worry about him fitting. It
Right.
seems like.
But by the way, earlier when we first started talking about Zay getting some stray bullets, and I couldn't find the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
My guy Skeptic Goat is listening via Twitter, and
Yeah.
he gave me the word. I
What is
agree with you. Many fans are conflating wide receiver one with X wide receiver. Conflate was the word I was looking
There you
for.
go.
Thank you, Skeptic Goat.
Skep, always taking care of you.
Appreciate him.
Good football mind. So, what's this chart on coach it? Oh, this is hilarious. I didn't even see that this was in there. Oh, I'm sorry. We got 2 different slides going right now, don't we? This is what I wanted to show you. Best coach in the NFL, which is funny because the first slide that came up was the annual head coach's photo during the owners' meetings.
Did I bring that in? I didn't
in
bring
Orlando. No, I had 2 different slides going.
Oh.
So there was this hilarious photo, which is always funny to kind of like zoom in on every single head coach, and of course, who's next to each other last month. This is when you were on vacation. Look who's in the front and center.
Oh,
Jim and John right next to each other.
And with Reed right next to him.
Yeah,
It's so
let's do
funny
this.
because there's so many head coaches, including Mike McDonald, that
do
like
this.
clearly care about beefing up their biceps. Look at all these dudes flexing their biceps.
Look at
And
these
then John
dudes.
and Jim are just kind of slouched. And then Andy Reid with this typical Hawaiian, tropical shirt. Just in the middle, those 3 guys. Oh,
Look
that's
at-
hilarious.
I mean, look at Jonathan Gannon, Cardinals head coach, bottom right all the way.
Yeah.
He is absolutely chiseled. I mean, are you kidding me?
Who started this trend?
I don't know, but it's awesome. And then look at how massive
it was
Dan
Rams.
Campbell is in the back.
Oh,
Detroit's
dude,
head coach.
he looks like he could get ready to play.
But you're right. Then you
Put
have
him in
Andy
a tight
below.
end.
Then you got Andy below him. Dave Canales is definitely chiseled. He's a sharp-looking guy. Look at Sean McVay on the 4 in from the left.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel far left. Anyway, where we were going, which is funny that this was the first slide that came up, was this. You pulled it in.
Oh,
There was
I
a
just thought it
fan
was
vote.
funny.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. Or like, so NFL Fox had fans vote on. It was like a March Madness bracket of who the best coach was, and John Harbaugh made it to the Final Four and lost in the AFC to Andy Reid, who eventually goes on to win the whole thing. And on the NFC side, it was Campbell out of Detroit, who went to the Super Bowl, if you will, and lost to Andy Reid. But it is. I bring it up because it's continually hilarious to me, which was highlighted when we were in Vegas talking to everybody who's there, and everybody just loves Harbaugh, and our fan base is losing big time hope, and that keeps, not everybody, but that percentage continues to grow, and he's certainly not without criticism. But there's,
For sure.
I don't know that there's a wider gap in a perception of a head coach from nationally versus the fan base.
No doubt. No doubt. Just to finish up here, again, earlier on in the live stream, we learned that Sam Mustipher is heading to Denver. He becomes the 12th Ravens true unrestricted free agent to sign elsewhere over the last 3 weeks. The only true unrestricted free agents that are still on the market that played in
Say that
Baltimore.
again? He's the only true unrestricted free agent to sign?
Well, no, the only true unrestricted free agents that are still on the market
Oh, okay. Because there's been,
are the following
Patrick
players.
Queen was an unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only ones that are still
Left.
on the open market are J.K. Dobbins, as we know, Dalvin Cook, Kyle Van Noy, and Rock Yassin, along with Darryl Worley. So as of right now, the Ravens remain in line to receive those 4 compensatory draft picks for next year,
They have
2025 NFL
left
draft.
over. Yeah, they can't even get all the draft compensatory draft. Too bad there's a maximum.
Right? What is it?
It's 4. I
No,
think the
it's
Ravens,
4.
if there wasn't a max, I think the Ravens could be up to like 6 or 7 now. I think Musfer might be 7.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tanya wants to know who the backup center is. Well, could be McCary.
I
McCary's an
feel like,
option.
I mean, it could be, but I think that they do like him better. I mean, he's more valuable swinging left to right tackle.
Much more.
But I don't think the backup center's on the roster yet.
Okay. Perhaps he's one of the 3 that DJ is guaranteeing they're bringing in the draft.
Yeah.
3 linemen. But McCary has, I guess, the only guy on the roster. As I
What's
pull up
funny is
last
I got
year's-
McCary penciled in like everywhere
Yeah, how can you not?
at this point because they need more bodies.
How can
So,
you not?
yeah.
Yeah, the only player on the roster that's had experience there outside of the starter and Tyler is McCary. Experience in Baltimore, that is.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Okay. Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate you guys for dropping by. We got over 1,900 concurrents right now in a little Thursday Ravens lunch hour live stream edition. Did want to be.
You frozen there, broski? Which is what I call my son all the time. All right. Am I the one that's frozen or are you frozen? Somebody comment here for me. Who's frozen? No pressure, Sarah. So does that mean that you guys can hear me? I don't know if I'm frozen or okay, it is Bobby. All right, come out, Bobby, then come back in. We were just I think he was just wrapping up, saying thank you to everybody, including our sponsor, Manscaped. Go out and give them a look. Go to their website. Really is a nice little product, I'll be honest. So thank you to Manscaped. Thank you to everybody that has been chiming in through the comment section. And we will be back tomorrow at noon, with Emery Hunt from CBS Sports, and we will dive even deeper into the draft to see who the Ravens could be taking at number 30 and beyond. Thank you, everybody. Get back to work. Lunchtime is over.